Taste funny.
Hello and welcome to Taste Funny Podcast. The Taste Funny. I think Taste Funny Podcast. The Taste Funny Podcast. Tastes funny.
Yeah, I think it's just tastes funny, but I also, oh god, the special guest's already getting involved.
Oh no. Hello.
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 This week, the special guest is a dog, and that's because we're coming from you. Coming from you. We're coming from you.
We're coming from you. To be fair, given that the only people who listen to this is our mums,
Yes.
that is weirdly accurate.
Some people in New York.
Yes. Yeah.
Hello, New York.
We'll come back to that. I want to talk about that.
But yeah, we're coming from a living room in North Yorkshire.
We're indoors for the first time.
Yeah.
We've never recorded indoors before.
This is almost a real studio.
Yeah.
It's not as convenient as the other ones.
There's quite a posh chair and some nice speakers.
Yeah, and a dog. So if there's a lot of flumping, panting, licky sounds,
more so than usual,
banging, I mean that would be thanks to this idiot canine that we decided to bring along for the journey.
Welcome to episode. This is episode 14. My name is Joe McLachlan.
And my name's Peter McHugh.
And we're joined today by Neith McHugh, who is Peter's dog.
Yes.
Who is trying to lick. She's really keen on me today.
She's really keen on anybody.
Don't take it away from me.
Sorry, she's a whore. I can't. Sorry.
She's very excited. Oh, she's just wandered off now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so she'll be joining us, with some insights
periodically,
dropping in here and there. Yeah. I imagine.
Yeah.
How have you been? How have you been?
Yeah, good. Listened to just a shit ton of albums recently.
What you listening to?
I've been listening to Pissed Jeans, who are a post-punk, post-hardcore sludge band who want to sound like a flushing toilet, and they write songs about pegging and terrible bad life things. And
don't Google that, Mum.
Yeah, please don't Google that. But they're really good and sludgy sounding, and they make me happy. I've also listened to a couple of doom metal albums, Ahab's The Boats of the Glencarrig, and a post-metal album by Cult of Luna and Julie Christmas, who has an incredible last name. And recently I've been listening to Mets, who I've not talked to you about yet, but Mets are another very noisy, aggressive sounding post-punk band who I will probably be recommending to you at some point. Or even if it's just a sort of, go listen to this please, Joe, because you'll like it, as opposed to a podcast-based recommendation. I listened to the newest Yob album as well, actually.
Alright.
And it's good. It's really proper good. It might be my second favourite now, after Clearing the Path to Ascend, now that I've given it time to... Because I mentioned it in the Yob podcast that I'd listened to it on the way up. And I've now given it a fair amount of time and listened to it through a lot. And yeah, it's really good. Especially, I think you'd like it because there's 2 tracks on there that are very similar to Marrow.
So there's a good about 40 minutes of
material. Oh yeah, one of them's 15 minutes, the other one is a 20-minute, I think. And like I say, they're very similar to Marrow in a lot of ways, that more melodic thing. And there's a nice fast pacey track that's quite similar to Nothing to Win. And then everything else on there is also just really good, but it sounds like maybe more like some of the stuff from their other albums. Either way, it's really, really, really solid. Definitely some of the best stuff they've ever done.
Excellent. So I might look that up. I might genuinely go after that. I might not though, because that's the other thing.
You say these things, and
I do.
You don't follow through.
Yeah. I've been listening to Dirty Fan Mail by Johnny Trunk, which you will adore, and I will talk to you about it at some point, probably off pod. But it basically, I want to put it out there because it's an album of letters to pornographic magazines read out in a funny way.
Okay.
And it's fucking excellent. It's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. And they're only about a minute long each track.
Right.
There's loads of them. There's about 30-40 tracks on this album.
Yeah.
And it's literally just, it gets quite dark. It's really strange. And I can't really describe it any better than that. They're literally just reading out these letters. So I thoroughly recommend that. I've also listened mostly actually this month. My top jam this month has been the Teal album by Weezer.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I haven't listened to a lot of Weezer recently because they're one of those bands. They're like Sonic Boom 6 or a lot of bands that they're just putting out a fucking record all the time, and it's impossible if you're not super into them. It's really hard to keep up.
Yeah.
So I love the stuff of Weezer's that is good. Weezer have got some fucking absolute corkers that I would have grown up listening to, and you would have grown up listening
definitely,
to.
definitely.
Anyone our age, and to be fair, they've been around for years.
And they recently did the Toto cover.
Well, this is what the Teal album is. It's an album of covers. So it opens with Africa. Do you know the story about Toto covering Africa?
It was an internet thing.
Basically, one fan tweeted them saying, "Will you cover Africa?" And then they trolled her by releasing a different Toto cover. They covered a different Toto song, and then a couple of days later they did release Africa as well.
Yeah.
But it also includes "Everybody Wants to Rule the World," which is a fucking gorgeous cover. "Sweet Dreams" by Eurythmics. There's some
better than the Manson cover.
Do you know what's it? Well, no. What I've been talking about to people with this album though is it's basically they're like a wedding band, Weezer, in this album because they're not making the songs their own in as much as they just sound like the normal songs, but they are just being sung by somebody else.
They're being sung by
It's
Weezer.
like they're like a function band.
Yeah.
And it's fucking great because there's no pretension. They're not trying to take the piss. My favourite one is undoubtedly "No Scrubs," which is which obviously you'll be with by TLC. Which actually, do you know what it is? I'm going to play a little bit of that in here because it's just wonderful.
Just in case.
A scrub is a guy that thinks he's fly and is also known as a buster. Always talking about what he wants and just sits on his broke ass. So no, I don't want your number. No, I don't want to give you mine. And no, I don't want to meet you nowhere. No, don't want none of your time. And no, I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy that can't get no love from me, hanging out the passenger side of his best friend's ride.
So that's "No Scrubs" as covered by Weezer, but originally by TLC.
Oh, I thought you were going to play in the TLC one.
No. It was a surprise to you when I just did that.
It was.
Wasn't it?
I'm shocked.
Yeah. So that's my main jam. I've been listening to that loads, and that's only about 40 minutes long. So if I put it on at work, people get really sick of it within minutes.
That's one of those songs that I can't help but sing along to. It's definitely not in a style that I enjoy or anything about it that I particularly love. But
it became very difficult for me when I started working in a hospital.
Yeah.
Because literally every day I will walk past someone who's wearing scrubs, and I will immediately start. And it's one of those. It's like a muscle. You know, you have those muscle memories in your brain, and that's literally. I will walk past someone who has clearly just come out of theatre, and my brain will immediately go, "Scrub is a cat, thinks he's fly," and I'm like, "Fuck's sake! I've just got rid of it."
I don't want no scrubs.
Yeah. So I did listen to a little bit more Weezer. So because I thought I'll try and listen to some of the more recent output. It's all right. It's just standard Weezer. They're one of those bands. I don't think that they've really evolved that much.
Their style hasn't changed. No.
Yeah, they're a little bit less pop punk than they used to be. There's a little more pop in there. But I think they've always just been a pop band. But there's loads of bands like that. There are loads of bands where, I think NoFX would be another one. Where if you like what NoFX have been doing for the last 20 years, you will not be disappointed with what they're doing now. Yeah. It hasn't changed much. So if you want in progression, you aren't going to get it from them. Yeah. But they're still really good at what they do.
There's a lot of bands that will just bang out the same formula because it works. Keep the fans happy.
And it's not even necessarily formulaic. It's just what they're just a band enjoying what they do.
This is what
the Toy Dolls are another one. Where you listen to all their albums sound pretty similar. They're one of those. It's like Will Ferrell films. Just throw enough shit at the wall and hopefully some of it will stick.
Adam Sandler films.
Yeah. I mean that's just throw some shit at a wall. That's not really.
Come on, there's a couple of good ones.
Yeah, in the 90s. Not recently.
No.
So to be fair, I think even if you watch the 90s ones now, I think we watched Big Daddy. Big Daddy was on the telly the other week. We watched a bit of that.
That wouldn't have been one of my highlights anyway.
That's weird. That was a weird film to watch again. Because it's really sad, but actually, ultimately, what he does is he does abduct a child. And he learns to love through having abducted a child. But he has inostensibly abducted a child.
Speaking of
this shouldn't remind you of a story, Pete.
Have you watched the series version of Lemony Snicket's A Tale of Unfortunate Events?
No, I've not. Is that the one with the bloke from
Yes,
How I Met Your Mother and stuff?
His name has just gone straight out of my head. I can think of his
Neil Patrick Harris.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's really fucking excellent. You should.
Yeah, I have heard very good things.
It's real good. Because I ran out of dumb anime to watch, so I decided to.
Apparently the Umbrella Academy is the one that loads of people are talking about.
I am 4 or 5 episodes into it. It's alright. It's alright. It's not ringing my bell. It doesn't have the same dark humour as A Tale of Unfortunate Events, which is the thing I love about it most. Is its word wankery and its dark humour and its.
Yeah. I like some of Gerard Way's comics, but I think some of it is a bit much. Are you aware of that? It was written by Gerard Way from Michael
Not aware.
So it was. So maybe that's why it doesn't appeal to you.
Maybe. No, I don't hate it. Like, I'm intending to continue watching it. It's just, so far, it hasn't done anything that's really grabbed me by the cojones.
Okay.
So.
That's interesting. Because I keep meaning to get around to it, but as with most things, if most people who know me will ask, they'll say, "Have you seen it?" And they will know by now that the answer is no. I've not seen many films. I haven't seen any telly. I have seen my wife and child occasionally, but mostly that is it.
Yeah.
And nobody really asks about the serious progression of your children.
I think that's maybe enough rambling for one intro.
One other thing.
Oh, go on. You've got another listen.
I've got one. Yeah. I've also been listening to the soundtrack to Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse.
I've not seen that, and I want to.
It's fucking excellent.
Cool.
But that soundtrack is fucking excellent. Like, in the way that the whole film, to be fair, is amazing. If you haven't seen it, even if you're not a superhero film fan, there's something really wonderful about it's the film. As a Spider-Man fan, having kept up with the comics to an extent and read how that goes over the last few years, it's not a film I ever expected to see. And certainly not one I expected to see done well. Like, it's one that you sort of think, oh, they might do a bit of this on, like, Nicktoons or whatever, like the most recent animated version is. It's just so beautifully characterised, and it's thoroughly enjoyable, thoroughly worth a watch. Easily one of the best ones I've seen in a long time.
Cool.
But the soundtrack is also fucking excellent. I don't really know much about Post Malone. But he looks like if Shia LaBeouf's life had gone wrong earlier.
He just always looks like he's crawled out of the nearest skip.
Yeah.
Always. He looks stylish and like he's wearing expensive clothes, but like he's just been dragged through a field and a hedge.
Yeah, that's very much the case. One last thing I've listened to is a little bit of Louise Distress. So I think Pete and I, for the listener at home, we're talking about doing a little special. We're going to see The Men That Will Not Be Blamed for Nothing in April. So, but we talked briefly off pod about doing a retrospective of their work, and then a live review of the gig afterwards. Yeah. But she's their tour support, so it might be worth checking her out as well. Okay. She's I quite like. I feel like it's the sort of stuff. Like, I was listening to the recordings, going, I probably will really enjoy this live. I don't think the recordings don't really probably do her justice.
Not for you as a.
But it's very old school punk. Yeah. I don't think it feels like someone for whom the recording has not been as successful as whatever made people want to record her in the first place. If that makes sense. Like, I feel like you listen to the record, you kind of go, this is fine. But I feel like seeing her live hopefully will be a different experience. But we'll find out.
We certainly will.
Okay.
Right.
Let's talk shop. Jingle. So.
I'm a very big Woolworths fan.
Woolworths?
Yeah, I'm sad it's gone.
Right.
I thought we were talking shop.
That's a good one. That's hilarious.
It's not.
I'm in charge of the edit, so let's not presume that anyone heard that joke. So Pete, what are we talking about this week?
I believe, if memory serves, and it often does, that we are talking about the King Gizzard and the Wizard
Wizard.
Flying Microtonal Banana.
That is what we're talking about. I don't know why I asked, because if I didn't know,
this would be a rubbish podcast.
It would be very difficult. Though I have already explained to you, I left my notes in my coat pocket at my parents' house, so I had to rewrite them all this morning while I was sitting waiting for a job interview, which is probably not the best use of prep time.
No.
So
when you don't get it on Monday, you can say, "I'm sorry, Louise, I had to write."
Yeah. That's exactly what.
Had to write podcast. No,
I was actually, I think you'll find I was actually very busy.
My serious career.
Yeah. So why this album? Why did you pick this one as a recommendation for me?
Because of the 3 or 4 albums I've given considerable listening time to from King Gizzard. It's my personal favourite. I understand why Nonagon Infinity would have been the popular choice. I feel like it does
seem like it's much more mainstream.
Yeah,
from that name.
No, it's more of, it's quite similar to Microtonal, but they dispense with the microtonal tuning, and it's a very upbeat garage rock experience for the most part, with these obviously heavy psychedelic elements which are prevalent across everything that this band does. I just like this album because it's odd. Now, all of their albums are odd, and they're all odd in a different way, but this is my favourite kind of the odd that they have done.
It's a very accessibly odd album, isn't it?
Very much so, yeah.
Something
it's
I
quite
was
easy to listen to.
I was pleasantly surprised. Well, I don't know. Again, I'm probably not going to surprise you with any of the stuff I've read about it, but
no.
We'll start from the beginning.
Sure.
So it opens with Rattlesnake.
Rattlesnake, 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 rattlesnake.
It says Rattles Me is on the fourth one.
I know, but why the hell would they call it Rattlesnake?
Well,
I don't
the reason it's called Rattlesnake.
Why it's called Rattlesnake? The song that is 7 minutes
long.
long.
The song that is 7 minutes. The 7 minute long song for which the chorus is just the word rattlesnake. Right. So this is one thing that actually this will come up a few times. And I wasn't going to make this my first point, but seeing as we've kind of stumbled on it, that lyrically this album is very on the nose, and I was really surprised by that because the rest of the music, because I only really got around to the lyrics last week. I've been listening to the album on repeat. I really enjoyed it. I'll start out by that. I really enjoyed this album. This has been a much more enjoyable experience than I expected. I think I thought I was going to find it much more wanky than I did, but actually, it's been very, like I say, it's a very accessible album.
Yeah.
So when I got round to reading the lyrics, I was assuming it'd be the sort of same drug-addled hippie bullshit that you get in a lot of bands who do this sort of thing.
Yep.
But it's not. This Rattlesnake is literally about trying to get away from a rattlesnake because there's a rattlesnake. And what I like about that is that they've gone, well, the music's weird.
I mean, there's also
I did read there's a hint of it might be about withdrawal
or sex.
I didn't get that one.
Yeah, sex or drugs. I could see as a potential metaphor because it's the whole bit about riding the snake and rattling till you're dead. Or I mean, maybe now that you said it, I never really thought about the drug comparison until you said it there.
Well, the stuff I was reading,
withdrawal.
that was a vague hint of stuff, but mostly,
it
literally describes how you should behave if you come across a rattlesnake. So I sent it to my brother, who's currently living in San Diego. Hey mate, if you're listening, who around the time that I was starting listening to this album, he sent my mum a picture of he'd been gone for a walk in the forest, and had sent a picture of a sign that says "Danger Rattlesnakes." Right. So I sent him this song, and it turns out he's already a fan anyway. So
good.
So it's been an easy listen for him.
Nice,
anyway.
Good job, dude. Good music choice.
So, but I sent him that because I thought, well, this would be helpful. Some helpful prog or helpful psychedelic rock.
Psychedelic.
I know it's not prog.
Garage.
Don't write in, all none of you. It's,
all none of you.
All none of you, don't you?
How dare they?
But what's interesting? So it's an interesting and it's quite a clever opening track, and I think there's a lot more thought gone into this album. That's stupid to say because obviously loads of thought's gone into this album, but there's a lot. The fact that this is the opening track and the fact that it's not light on the microtones, but it's quite it eases you in. It feels like they kind of just go. Well, my impression was, they're kind of going, this is a thing we're doing. Get on board, guys.
Yeah.
And when I was reading interviews with the band, that is very much the case with this first track. That they really were like, at first you'll find this really annoying. Give it another couple of listens. Honestly, you'll barely even notice it. It'll just feel normal.
Yeah, because it is slightly jarring when notes aren't where you expect them to be. I don't know. They have an uncanny knack. There's a couple of bands who have this knack. They're making very complex music that comes off sounding quite simple.
Yeah.
Very, very they're not doing anything particularly weird in a lot of these tracks as time for playing technique or time signature or anything like that. They're using weird microtonally tuned instruments, but it's mostly there's a lot of layers. There's a lot of different riffs that are happening on top of one another, on top of one another, on top of one another, and it's really obviously quite well thought out music. And then they make it somehow sound very natural and jammy, and like it just came together. The band all sat down in a room, had a couple of joints, and went right, and they were off.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, like I feel like it. This is. I feel like I genuinely can't describe it any better than like it's an accessible weirdness. Like it's they're so good at just going like if you were to give anybody if you wanted a gateway into some slightly offbeat, unusual musical styles, this is a really good album for that because it just the whole thing just feels like because again I don't know the rest of their output as well as you do. And I don't know if this is the case every time.
It's weird. I was actually about to start talking about the rest of their output, but you finish your thought.
Oh, sorry.
No, finish your thought.
Oh Christ, that could be weeks. But yeah, like I don't know if every album feels like this. Every album is as easy to get into as this. But it feels like this is the sort of thing where they've gone. And I'm sure this may or may not have been an intentional thing, but it feels like this is more. This has got a commercial edge to it because of the fact that it feels very like anyone could enjoy this.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel elitist. It doesn't feel like we're just trying to break the mold of music, man. Like they're just nerds having a great time learning how music works.
Music
and again, the nerdiness is just that really. I watched a couple of interviews with them, and it's so they really just come across as very down to earth, and it's about the music, and it's not about what happens if I get stoned and then I'll just tiptoe along the edge of the guitar and see what happens. Like it's like literally, and they might be stoned. I don't know.
Oh, they're probably very stoned.
Probably, but it came across as being very about the music rather than any other part of it for me.
So, what I would say is, no, not all of their albums are this accessible, but they all have a very unifying sound in terms of you will hear them and you will go, this is King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard. There's no, like, you're not going, ooh, who's this? No, that's who it is. You know that's who it is. It sounds like them. But apart from that, every album is completely different. Like, they have an album called Quarters. Quarters, every song is 10 minutes and 10 seconds long, and each one is in a different style, and it's intended to represent a season, and whatever. They have an album called Paper Mache Dream Balloon, which is entirely acoustic. I think you'd probably love that one.
Yeah.
And acoustic recording instruments, violins and things of that nature, as opposed to any electronic gear, no synthesizers. Death of the Universe is mostly spoken word with musical interludes. And,
it's the whole feel. There's a real feel of somewhat like they're just kind of going, what would happen if we did this?
Yeah.
And that's really nice.
From what I understand, like the concept comes first. Stu usually will have a concept in mind, and he'll go and he'll write a couple of songs and he'll write lyrics and things, and then he'll bring it to the band and go, hey, here's a concept.
What happened? What's this song about, Stu? Oh well, I just walked across a zebra crossing, so I wrote a full song about that.
Zebra crossing. Okay, no, sorry, that was Vomit Coffin, I believe, is that song, which is from Death of the Universe. But if I'm remembering this rightly from the interview, it was a while ago, and I'm not sure I am. I think they were working on Paper Mache Dream Balloon. They started working on Paper Mache Dream Balloon long after they started working on Nonagon Infinity, but because Paper Mache Dream Balloon was all acoustic and the songs were quite simple to write, and they weren't trying to write a 9-track album that loops into itself and has reoccurring refrains and reoccurring passages throughout this, essentially one long super piece that loops into itself. They finished it in like a couple of weeks. They went in the studio, they smashed it out, and it was done. And they wrote that album while they were writing another album, and they just kind of went, and that's another thing, is that they spam albums out like you wouldn't believe. Easily one of the most sort of hard-working, prolific-y bands. They did 5 albums in 2017.
Yes,
the
I remember
run.
you saying about that.
But then even before that, their average was 3 a year. Which is nuts.
So we're talking about Weezer earlier. Have been difficult to keep up with, but actually,
that was actually what I was going to say. We were talking about Weezer earlier, and we were saying about bands that stick to this rigid formula, and bands that keep their sound but that innovate. King Gizzard are like another level on that, where they have this recognisable, clearly them signature stamp, but every album is vastly, markedly different. I mean, they have a lounge jazz album, for fuck's sake. Like, they literally just rock up and they go, oh, I'm doing this today. And this is what it's going to be, and there we go. I love that. That's good. I like not knowing what I'm going to get from a band.
Yeah, I think they're definitely someone I do need to follow more. but then I feel like I've got so much more out of this album from having really paid attention to it, and I haven't got the energy to do that with all of them.
I don't think you need to do that with all of them.
I've had loads of their albums on in work. Like I've had full albums on for days.
Yeah.
In work because I can get through them that way.
But I think they're very easy to listen to albums that don't necessarily require your attention a lot.
Fair.
It's one of the things I like about doom and these slower, pacier or more psyche genres is that I don't have to be. I just let it wash over me, and that's enough. I don't have to be, paying super attention to every piece of lyric or music, or it's about the vibe of the music and the way it makes me feel, and it can just wash over me, and I can go about my daily business enjoying, walking my dog or whatever it is, and it's just this vibey thing that's happening. And I feel that way about King Gizzard. You can just stick an album on or stick like a playlist of their albums on, and you wouldn't even notice. You just float through them.
That's true.
And you come out the other end and you go, oh, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Don't remember what that song was, but that riff was nice.
Yeah. Well, actually, in a way, that's sort of how the microtones kind of work. Eventually, you just kind of go, this. At first, you're like, this doesn't sound usual, and then eventually, you just stop noticing. Like if someone pronounces a word in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like
a lisp or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Eventually, that's how Dave talks.
Exactly.
But when you first meet Dave, you're like, oh, Dave has a lisp.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hope you're listening, Dave.
Yeah, good to know you, Dave.
Yeah, yeah. So, that was track 1. So we'll move on to track 2.
Rattlesnake. Sorry, that's not track 2.
So, Melting. So there's another one that's sort of musically, so lyrically, very direct. This is quite distracting, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
she's nice. She's nice company.
But when
I recommend her.
Yeah, but if you're trying to watch a TV show and she's getting all up in your biz, that's less good.
I'll tell you what. Was just for the listeners at home, we'll play a little bit of Neath right now. There's a little clip of Neath there, having a little sniff around and stuff.
Right, go on, fuck away. It's a girl to a hole.
I'm not very good at paying attention.
Melting.
Right, okay.
Melting.
You're not helping.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's like a whole album of just the intro to "Pay the Man" of Americana, I think.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Maybe I was thinking about that the other day. I was thinking that clearly what has happened is we've listened to that. That was one of the first albums we listened to together.
Yeah,
that sort of gatewayed us into alternative music. And clearly you've listened to the first half of that song,
yes,
and I've listened to the second half.
I love the second half best. It's weird, yeah. I never actually made that connection until you've said it, but yeah, I can hear that. Yeah, I can hear that in this sound for sure.
The Offspring did have a few. To be fair, they had quite a lot of sort of little Eastern kind of
Eastern stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Like weird chord changes and little twingly bits that don't quite fit into the chord structure of a normal.
Especially on Americana and their older albums for sure.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of that, so that's quite nice. And I think that it probably was my first exposure to that sort of music.
Yeah,
even though there were 4 white men, it's not exactly it's not exactly Ravi Shankar, but it's certainly. But it's a really the rhythm is really lovely and really sort of groovy. That really, I've written groovy in my notes. I've written the word groovy way more.
The whole album is just a big groove.
I really like that they have 2 drummers and only one of them's allowed a kick drum. I really like that.
Only for that album, but yeah.
All right, okay. Is that standard that he only?
Yeah.
Bless you, Neath.
Yeah, bless you, dog. He only had one kick drum for that album because, as they say in the little video diary they did for it, that he lost his bass drum privileges, and I don't know what he did to lose them, but they take the mick out of him for it, and they're like, he lost his bass drum.
Yeah, well, that was another thing. So that's one thing that
everything they do has this really groovy quality to it.
Yeah, that's
and the
true.
2 drummers thing, because
they sort of seem to play the same thing as well. It's not
lot of the time, yeah, and it's
not like they're playing off each other or anything.
What they do though, and you can definitely hear it more on this album than you can. Because I said, my first exposure to them was watching live videos on KXP. That's how I came across them.
I think me and you watched.
And at the time I was like, they've got 2 drummers, but they're not really doing a lot with it. But there's some songs on this album where they're trading off hi-hat hits. It's not a massive thing that they're doing, but you can really hear it, and it because obviously this comes back to something we were vaguely discussing earlier, the idea of humanisation in electronic music and the sort of random velocities and stuff like that. Because
that makes it sound like we have really highfalutin conversations.
It does.
And what happened? That conversation was very much Pete said some words, and I went, if I pretend I understood that, you stop? Please don't anyone be under the impression that it was a two-sided conversation.
It was not. No, it was definitely
I did not get it at all.
But my point being that this is like, now you've got, because if you've got one person playing the hi-hat over and over again, there's a chance that they're going to hit it pretty evenly each time, and they're going to hit it in a similar way each time. When you've got two people doing it, now you've got more of a disparity in.
Well, that's really interesting. Because I've not really clocked that.
And you say there's where it's like every beat is slightly different, and you can hear it and they pan it as well, so it makes it even more noticeable. But there's a few bits on this album, and quite often it will be like one drummer takes a fill, or one drummer's taking the like a different rhythmic part, but the main beat doesn't stop. The groove never stops. Even when there's a drum fill or a drum solo, the groove doesn't stop. So you got the, but still underneath it, you've still got that.
Well, that's another because because in the other, it's like, because that as well as that, that's interesting. I'd not clocked that with the drum fills and the groove. That's quite nice. I like that. But another thing that is often the instruments, so like the two guitars and the bass, are all playing the same thing, or certainly a very similar thing. So when one does a thing that's different, it's still very much going on in the background, regardless of what's happening.
And there's a lot of it.
And there's
it's constantly happening, little changes and little people doing little slightly different, variations of the riff. Which, just like I say, that adds to that sort of that flowy, grooving, jam-like sound that they produce.
It's way more DIY than I expected. Watching videos of them like recording. I think we must have watched. It's the same video diary thing, but like the fact that he's got like a wallet taped to the snare to dampen it, and like for me, like, so I already quite liked the album, but I was kind of already I was kind of, with a lot of bands like this, I find my sensibilities. We've talked about this before. Like, my sensibilities and my preferences tend to be for the more DIY. Like, I'm more inclined, even if something's shit, I'm far more likely to appreciate it if I know that what's gone into it is more
authentic and
it's got a bit more heart, got a bit more soul to it than like some effects or like professionalism. Like, I'm not interested
I want quality music that makes me feel a thing. I'm not really bothered if it's cleanly clean pop music.
And like, I was really taken with watching them, and the fact, like, obviously they've had extra frets and stuff put in the guitars, but like, talking about the humanisation as well, something that I clocked a couple of times. What's interesting is when they're singing, because again the singing is the same, the tune is often the same, the tune of the vocal is the same as what's being played on the guitar or the bass. And that is interesting because sometimes you hear them singing in the normal scale, because it's easy to play a note on a guitar and it be the note that it's supposed to be. So if you've got a microtone, you can play that note on a guitar and it will be that, because you've tuned it to be that note. That's literally the point of having those extra frets there. Those don't exist, so you put them in and then they do exist. But their voices often don't hit the microtone, because that's presumably much harder to do with your voice, is to sing out of tune on purpose, or to sing a bit of a
slight detune.
A slight to detune. It's a much. I'm not like, they do it sometimes, but just every now and again you hear where they're singing what the tune feels like it should be and what the tune actually is. There is a dissonance
I've
there.
not noticed that, but I'll listen for it next time I listen to the album.
Because
that's interesting. It's weird.
It's harder to, I think, probably harder to retune your brain.
I recently learned a thing about tuning, and about guitar tuning specifically, and that is that all standard tuning guitars are out of tune. All of them. Everyone in the world. Because you can't divide the octave properly like that. Everything has to be ever so slightly out of tune to make the standard tuning that we are all used to hearing work, or the standard fretboard, I should say. It's really weird. To actually properly divide the octave, you need to be able to move the frets about, and I learned this because I was watching. I'll link you to the video afterwards. Originally this album was meant to be played
on an instrument that you can move the frets on.
What, really?
Yes, I can't remember the name of the instrument because I did write it down.
Oh.
And I left it in a different.
Didn't
But it's a Turkish instrument, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they're already using.
There's a lot of Eastern kind of.
Zunas or whatever.
The
reed instrument.
Zurna.
Zurnas.
The Zurna I'm coming back to because the Zurna on the last track.
I mean, Zurna on every track that it's in is majestic.
It's cutting. it's majestic is not the word I would use. The Zurna is cutting.
Yeah,
cutting is the word.
The reason I learned this is because I was watching a video about lutes of all things, and lutes didn't have fretboards; they had gut string wrapped over the board.
Yeah.
So that you could actually just tilt the fret and completely change the tuning.
Yeah.
Which allowed you to play microtones essentially that were more pleasing and more musically perfect than a standard. Like a G chord, if you've moved the frets about on that lute, will sound better, will sound more musically pleasing than it would if you played it on the guitar, because the guitar is naturally out of tune.
Yeah. Okay.
And everything is tuned to that though now,
Yeah.
because of the way we've divided the. Anyway, that's a completely different thing, and I don't know enough about it to talk about it at length. But it was just cool.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, I was just thinking on that. I wonder whether or not this is just a slight tangent. Shocker. But I wonder whether or not it's harder to play microtones on a fretless instrument because you kind of.
That's your point of reference.
Yeah, because if you're playing a fretless instrument, you kind of.
Well, I imagine you've got to be able to pitch perfectly by brain at that point. Just perfect pitch it and listen and work it out. Dean used to have a fretless bass and he could play it, but he could play it because he memorised.
Yeah.
I've
played fretless basses. I've played fretless guitars.
Yeah.
And it's harder because obviously you don't have the visual marker. But then to be fair though, a violin is fretless. A violin doesn't have frets. A double bass doesn't have frets.
No.
Most stringed instruments.
Classical stringed instruments
don't tend to have frets anyway. So actually, what it is pop musicians are lazy. And we've just put them in so that we can be like, we can see what we're doing.
There's a note.
Haha, violinists, you fucking idiots. Should have thought of this ages ago. We'll do it in a chromatic scale. No pissing about for us.
Yeah.
No slightly missing the note. Although maybe that's it. Maybe like what you were saying, that you can adjust, you can pinpoint the exact point where the note is the right note.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm not.
This has gone very deeply into
track 3.
Yeah, this has got very. Considering that I was saying how much I enjoyed the fact that this album is less wanky than I expected. This has gone very wanky.
Well, because it's
a very interesting,
unpretentiously wanky album.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just I think I enjoyed their fascination with what can we do with this.
I think
they seem honestly really interested in it.
Yeah,
and it's not that they're trying to do it for the sake of it.
Nice
they
just want to make
weird
music. They just want to explore ideas, and that's great. Not enough people do that.
Yeah. Just so we're moving on to Open Water. Sorry, Open Water is track 3.
I fucking love this track.
Yes,
I think this is
the one you played. This is the one you played. And again I liked it. This is I think something else that I would note with the bass on because it's another environmentally themed one. It's a very socially conscious album. I think that's like 2 or 3 albums now you've given me that have been very.
I tend to gravitate towards that stuff for reasons.
No, that's reasonable. I really enjoy the sort of pedalled bass the whole way through this album. The bass just kind of tends to play one note. With bits of the riff chucked in, but I love it.
I'd seen as a negative in a review I'd watched is that the bass and drums are incredibly static.
It's
beautiful. It is nice, and I like it. But it was sort of the review was saying, well, it was Mr. Melonlord from the Needle Drop again because I watch the channel kind of religiously, but. He was saying like he felt like it was to make it easier for them to have the microtonal stuff going on, and if they tried to be busy with the structure, the bass level of the music, that it would have overcomplicated things and maybe made it sound less good as a result, but that realistically they'd pared it back compared to Nonagon Infinity or some of their other albums, which I definitely agree with. The bass is definitely a lot more mobile on those albums.
Okay,
and
so that's specific to this album.
More interesting. Yeah, that's very much specific.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if that was just part of their sound, but
I mean the sort of chugging groovy motor vibe is everywhere, but I would say that they definitely pared back the complexity of some of the more structural parts of the music to make space for the crazier stuff that they're putting on top. I would agree with that for sure.
Okay, but that's yeah. To be fair, well, I wonder, but maybe that's what part of what makes this so accessible for me is the fact that that again I can totally get a handle on the bass and drums because they are simple, and so if I've got that to rest on, I can get on board with the weird other stuff.
Yeah,
maybe I don't know.
I mean,
It's hard. I'm literally just analysing my own enjoyment of something, which is I know the point of this podcast.
That's sort of the point of the podcast. Yeah, it tastes funny. I definitely feel like the bass drum combo here is doing exactly what it should be, which is gluing everything together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that doesn't change no matter what album you're listening to. It's always very driving and groovy, and it's always the glue that holds everything together, for sure. Yeah. But I think the bass lines are quite static. Is what I would say on this.
I absolutely was not saying that as a negative though.
No, and I don't
really
personally perceive it as a negative. I actually really like a lot of
I can see how it could be
on this album.
Maybe I suppose if you're a fan of the band and but then I don't know.
No, I don't think it's a negative. I mean that was like I say, that was another reviewer's words, but I don't disagree with what he said. It's just that I don't personally find it a turn off.
Like I say, my notes were a little stripped back on this one, so actually that's pretty much all I've got. But it's a great song. Like.
I like the big sort of drum rolls that bookend the chorus and the verse. And just the whole thing's just got this lovely. Like it's the vocals. Like, with the rising vocal. In the depths of murky waters. Like that bit.
That's very enjoyable. Yeah,
it's a lovely little section. Just
And it's another one of the things where you can hear it. Yeah, there's like that.
Yeah.
See, I've just done it there. I've just tried to do a little bit of that, the thing where I've gone up a microtone, and I haven't done it. I've actually just gone up the proper note.
Yeah.
Which is annoying, but it proves my point. It's really fucking hard to untune your singing in a way that. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, Sleep Drifter, great tune. Reminds me lyrically, content-wise,
super chill.
Yeah, reminds me of All By Myself, the bonus track off Dookie by Green Day.
Right, yeah.
Are you familiar with the song?
I am, yeah.
The one where Trey Cool is sneaking around somebody's house and having a wank in their bedroom when they're not there. So again, like lyrically speaking, it's just about dreaming that somebody was there and waking up to find they're not really there.
Yeah.
It's fairly on the nose, lyrically, which
I'm
happy with. To be honest, I think there's that much going on musically. Again, I feel like that was a big positive for me, the fact that it's...
Lyrics, not a lot going on, not a lot to think about, just nice. I mean, I think that's what I want from a King Gizzard album, is not a lot to think about. I want it to be musically interesting, but I don't want to have to like sit and go, oh god, riff in 7/12 and the thing, and they did that, and there was a polyphonic polyrhythm going on. I don't have to analyse it. I just want it to have a vibe and be good. Yeah,
but again, it's it's very sleepy. It's lyrically sleepy.
Yeah,
like the whole thing it just washes over.
I see. I often think that the lyrics are the weakest part of King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard. It's often like, and it's not.
I mean,
always...
it is Lizard Wizard. I feel like I do need to say that.
Wizard Lizard. Have I been doing it wrong?
Yeah,
I always get it wrong.
So do you know the story behind the name?
I don't.
So basically, and I might be getting bit again. So I had this written down, but I don't have it now in front of me. But something along the lines of Stu McKenzie, who is the singer and guitar player, or one of the singers and guitar players.
Yeah.
He was keen on calling it Gizzard Wizard, and one of the other band members wanted to name themselves after Jim Morrison from The Doors' nickname, which is Lizard King. So they basically combined the two.
Oh, that's cool.
So and made it into one name. But what I like about this story, because I don't think we've told this story on pod, but you know obviously how our band name came about. Is we were
which one?
The X Towels.
Yeah.
So the story. So I'll briefly run through this, because I think it's quite a good story actually. I think it's one of those ones where had we been quite famous, this is a good story that
it would have been good to tell. Later.
It would have been good trivia for people.
It's a shame it's a shit name.
It's not a shit name. Fuck you. So when we first formed the band, myself, Scott, and Johnny, where we were living in a student flat. And we had a letter through the door for a Dr. M. Nizamuddin, and I really liked that name. I think I've since learned it's actually not an uncommon Asian name. Though I've not met anyone else with the surname, but I've heard that it's not an uncommon one. but I was really taken with the name because it sounds fucking glorious.
Yes.
I had played with the idea of taking the stage name of Dr. Nizamuddin. Then we were sitting in the kitchen and Scott was playing what later became the guitar solo in one of our songs. We were going to use it as a melody, and instead it became a solo. But we were sitting and trying to put some words to this thing, and there was a bag of tea towels on the back of the door. Do you know this story?
I don't know if I've ever heard it in its entirety. Go on.
Really? Oh, right. Okay.
I will have done at some point, but it would have been a while ago.
So we were sitting, and Scott just started singing, bag of towels, Nizamuddin's bag of towels. No, there never was a bag of towels like Nizamuddin's bag of towels, and that was that. So then we became that. The full name of the band when we first named it was Nizamuddin and the Magic Bag of Towels. So the first night we gigged ever was an open mic night, and we went up and the DJ said, and we said, "Can we play?"
I know this bit.
And the DJ said, "What's your name?" And we said, "Dr. Nizamuddin and the Magic Bag of Towels," and he said, "I'm not saying that," which is perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
But I do feel as though if King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard
had rocked up my night,
they would have been just called. So they'd now be called the Kings
or the Wizard.
The Wizard. So the guy announced us as the Towels,
and that was that.
The
end of it.
And well, it wasn't quite the end of it, Pete. Because,
that's true. Yeah.
Because later on, we got an email from a journalist in California who was writing an article about bands who have the same name. And I got really excited because I was like, "Oh, this will be our big break. We're going to be huge, and we're going to go on the Warped tour," which may, spoiler alert, we didn't. But I was genuinely, because there was a bit of me going, "I bet they'd love this sort of shit." There's loads of like we'd be on Fat Records. I bet loads of people. Fat Mike would love this nonsense, and so we were but he was emailing us because there was, and we were already aware of this. There was another band called the Towels in California. As unlikely
as that seems.
Bizarrely, it's not like, I don't know how they got their name, but
I'm assuming
but
as convolutedly as this.
So then I stopped. But so we emailed it. We exchanged a couple of emails, and then he stopped emailing me, and I didn't know why. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a cease and desist letter, an email from the other Towels because their name was trademarked. So we weren't allowed to use it, even though we literally were. There's no hope of us ever being anything other than like really? Student band.
Yeah.
So we had to change the name. So we eventually we settled on calling on it. We were briefly called Don't Sue Me because we thought that was funny, but then we settled on the X Towels, which I still to this day think is fucking funny, and fuck 'em. And they are shit.
Yeah, horrendous. I remember listening to the music and being like, oh, really?
They've got a song called Godzilla Christmas, which when I wrote a song about them trying to cease and desist us, I called it Godzilla Christmas because I'm a petulant little wanker. So, but
King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard, maybe.
But King Gizzard. But I like that name for the fact that that's a really elaborate band name. I like the fact that no one's ever said you can't do that. But yeah, again, just lots of very bluesy, the instruments all playing together, very, very little noodling. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yes.
Billabong Valley.
The only one that isn't Stu on vocals, yeah.
Yeah, I really like the vocals on this track.
Well, he has his own band. They're called the Murlocs.
I may be looking them up then because I actually thought it was a woman. I didn't realise.
It's the harmonica player.
Oh right, okay.
And keyboardist.
All right. I mean, that could still be a woman. But
yeah.
That hasn't
no. But I've forgotten his name. But
I think his name is still quite ambiguous.
No, he definitely Ambrose is his name.
But let's be right. Ambrose is neither a boy's or a girl's name.
No, it's true. But I always want to call him Kevin because there's like a famous interview where it might even be the one.
I think it is that one where
friends call me Kevin. I'm Ambrose. Friends call me Kevin.
Yeah,
you're sweet, and I want to take you home.
Yeah, but I love the vocals on this. This is essentially a folk song, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It's a folk song, and I would argue that probably the poppiest of the lot. This is
apart from the crazy Zerna breakdown.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, but even then, this for me is the radio hit, and I feel like you could do like a hip hop remix of the way
it's definitely like a really popular song for them as a band, and like live the breakdown bit is so much heavier than you would expect.
Yeah.
Like listening to it from on a live recording, that sort of the Zernery back end breakdown where everything slows down is just really heavy. It's
Yeah.
really
By this point as well, the microtones sound completely normal. There's no.
Yeah. By this point, you've lost all concept of regular musical tuning.
Yeah. There's absolutely no reason that this would be. I did look up Mad Dog Morgan, the guy that the song's about.
I did as well. Yeah.
Because I want to see the film because it's based on a film, or rather there is a film based on his life on which this song is based.
Yes.
So I'd hoped I would get a chance to watch that before I saw you, but that has not been the case.
No.
But it might not be a very good film, so I might not have missed out on anything. But this is right up my street because this is a story about a guy who's like an outlaw in Billabong Valley.
Yes.
And he used to shoot people, and then he got shot.
He burnt some tents.
Yeah.
Did some bad things to a Chinese man, and then
Then
he dead.
Pretty bad dude.
Bad guy.
Yeah. So actually, there's a song by the Men They Couldn't Hang called Billy Morgan, which is not about the same person, but I am starting to think that people with that surname might be problematic.
Shitters. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. But that's a good song though. It's the same sort of thing. Like it's like a story. Morgan the man with no tan comes in on the midday train. It always goes in the thing, which is the same as The chances of anything coming from Mars are 1,000,000 to 1. They said. It's a very. And now the next bit.
Yeah.
There's probably more of those.
Probably.
Right in.
Let us know.
No, I really like that, and I really feel like you could that chorus, that Mad Dog Morgan. Yeah, you could really get a proper hip hop remix out of that. There was I really felt there would be like put a nice little beat behind that and drop some rapping over it. You know, all the versions of like Under Pressure or like. Any song that has become more famous as a result of a hip hop remix.
Yeah.
Run DMC and Aerosmith Walk This Way. That's probably a good example as well. It really felt like you could get more out of this. But as a song,
I'm interested to hear that remix.
I bet it'd be fucking great. It'd be fucking brilliant. I really like this song. This was just lovely.
Yeah. One of the best songs on the album.
Yeah. Do you know what it is? I feel like I've got nothing bad to say.
That's okay. I mean, if we're gonna have a gush fest, we'll have a gush fest. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that's true. This very much has been one. I'll move straight on then.
Go.
Anoxia.
Yes.
Great song.
Good song.
Great song. Are you familiar with what it means?
No.
So anoxia, because I thought this was fascinating. Because I heard about this years ago. I didn't know there was a word for it, but I remember hearing years ago that the military. I think I heard it was the Americans, but realistically, it could be any bunch of pricks. Where they were developing bombs that would explode, and rather than burning the victims, or it would remove all the oxygen.
Yeah.
From
no, I have read about this.
So that term is anoxia. That's what that's called. Okay. Anoxia is the phenomenon of a fire taking up all the oxygen and choking people.
That's mad.
And people die by fire, even though they've actually died of asphyxiation.
Yeah, more like.
They've died of anoxia.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, so I think this referred to a specific case, this song, where it happened in a baseball stadium, and a family died. But if you listen to the lyrics of the song, they felt no burning, or something along those lines, and it refers to a specific incident where a family were killed because they died by anoxia without.
That's crazy.
Without being burned to death. It was fascinating. Yeah. The stuff I was reading about is really, really interesting.
Because I think,
and obviously,
this is a case where I really never delved too deep into the meanings behind a lot of.
There is a huge meal of
because they don't do a lot of, like you say, the deeper lyric stuff. And also, I just tend to find that Stu's vocals, pleasant as they are, float past my ears.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's it. And
yeah,
then they're gone.
I just couldn't not. But I think lyrically, musically, it's a great rock and roll song. With a bit of Eastern influence chucked in because of the microtones and stuff, but I probably isn't even lyrically that interesting. But I did learn something from it,
and learning is fun.
Yeah. Speaking of things I've learned recently, if you and I we talked about starting a doom metal band and we were going to call it something, but I can't remember what it was.
Oh, Otter Despair.
Otter Despair, was it? Right, Otter Despair. Right, okay. Well, I've got a better one.
Yeah.
So, 'cause obviously my kid is massively into dinosaurs. So I have done a lot of work recently researching dinosaurs. And my favourite dinosaur fact, and everyone at home, you can have this. This is beautiful fact. That the first ever Latin name given to any sort of dinosaur, at the time, they didn't know what it was. It was discovered in the mid 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
It was the thigh bone, the lower thigh bone of a megalosaurus, or what's now referred to as a megalosaurus. But at the Latin name given to it when it was first officially named was scrotum humanum, because it looks like a great big ball bag. And that's my best fact I've learned this week. You are all welcome.
That's great. That would make a good metal name.
That's exactly it. Scrotum humanum. So yeah, I really want that in like black metal writing.
Yeah,
on
death
a
metal.
t-shirt. I really want that.
Scrotum humanum.
A scrotum humanum, I think would be my best. That's my top black metal name, or death metal name. I don't know if would it be. Is there a thing with naming with metal? Is there would that be a black metal name or a death metal name?
Oh no, that call yourself what you like. I mean, I suppose there are certain conventions. Doom metal is particularly not good at naming bands. Yob's a great name, but like you tend to find there's a lot of
weed, mammoth,
weed, witch, bong, wizard. You know,
what's the one that you were telling me about? Because I was the Welsh ones.
The Welsh
weed, mammoth, metal bastard or something.
Yeah,
wizard bastard.
Mammoth weed wizard bastard. It's a terrible band name, but it's also amazing.
They're featured in Kerrang. I was flicking through a Kerrang interview with Smiths earlier, and they're featured in Kerrang.
Really heavy to be in Kerrang. I mean, the vocals are quite
Kerrang
nice
do
and
feature.
serene.
They just have a very broad. They don't specialise, do they?
Yeah, but whenever I think of Kerrang, I'm like pop punk.
Yeah.
You guys do pop punk.
That's
Metal
their
Hammer,
specialty, I think.
Metal Hammer does poppier metal. Your Machine Heads and your Slipknots. And then Terrorizer does the things that I want to know about, and Terrorizer's like this obscure Swedish black doom band. And I'm like, oh, give me some of that. I'm a bit of that.
People are wankers.
Screeching and blast beats, please.
But yeah, so look that up. Scrotum humanum and Anoxia. Both excellent band names.
Yeah,
for death metal bands.
Anoxia's actually that's a great.
Anoxia's a very cool band name, isn't it? I bet there is a band called Anoxia.
Almost certain.
And if there is, I'm going to play a little bit of them now. I'm going to recommend them. Here it is. Might have just been some silence there.
That was either good or bad.
Yeah. We'll find out later. It might have just been a clip of the song Anoxia
by King Gizzard and the Wizard. Yeah, it
probably wasn't, because if I'm going to play a clip, Pete, it's going to be of this next track.
Really?
It's going to be of Doom City.
Doom City.
Because that, in particular, and I was thinking actually we should implement a thing where we have to guess what the other person is going to clip.
Yeah, okay.
And I feel like for me this was a very clear, just because it's so fucking groovy. It's so good. I had already heard this. I think you played the KXPX.
KXP or whatever.
Yeah, KXP.
They probably played it on that because
I'm pretty sure it was. I've definitely heard this. I've definitely
release.
heard that song before.
Yeah.
And it was.
And I think they played Nuclear Fusion as well, which is this next track, which I also love.
Yeah. See, I actually Nuclear Fusion. We'll come back to it, but I think it's my least memorable. Oh. Not least favourite, but
just
memorable.
doesn't stick.
Yeah, it just doesn't stick for me. Don't know why. But yeah, the opening thing that they do. Well, actually, I'll tell you what. We'll play a bit of it now, and then we'll talk about it. Yeah, like that whole the vocal carrying along the bass thing is just really appealing. Again, it's about pollution.
Yeah.
I've written in China because I can't remember which city it was. I think it's Beijing. Might be wrong. Yeah, so Stu went to this non-specific Chinese city and found the pollution in the air just massively just noxious and horrible, which is fair enough. So that's what this song's about. The opening vocal bass thing is beautiful. Again, you've got the vocal and the guitar doing the same.
Yeah.
Oh, to be fair, you probably got that right.
I thought we were starting halfway through, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, that's good. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
It's hard to know where we are, to be honest. But yeah, I just love this song. It's
good.
a really good song.
Super catchy.
Super fucking catchy.
Yeah.
This would be the one that I would, if I was trying to get someone to go along with it, this would be the song.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's literally what I've just done.
Yes.
And that apparently is all I have to say on that.
So the best intro on the album.
Yeah. Well, tell me about why you like this song then, because I've literally
that weird intro is really nice. It just slides into this very easy groove. It's not a particularly drivey song. It's just relaxed and laid back. I don't know. I really like the feeling of the song, I guess.
Yeah, it's a very atmospheric album. Like it is, like you've said, and like I have agreed. You could literally, this is 45 minutes of just chilling out a bit, brain off.
Yeah,
have a nice time.
And
that's because that's the thing. So much thought has probably gone into this album, but it really doesn't require that effort from you
to listen to. Again, and I say this is similar to the reasons that I enjoy things like doom metal, and I enjoy things like drone and ambient music. I enjoy music that you should say, pay attention to. I like it when there's something for me to pay attention to, but that's not what you need as a daily driver to get you through hoovering the house or taking yourself to work or whatever it is. Sometimes you just want to have.
I imagine that's why people listen to this podcast if they do.
Well, absolutely.
It's very much, you don't really need to pay attention because we've probably said the same thing.
Yes.
You could repeat the first 5 minutes.
That's right. We're going to have opinions for you.
Yeah. White man with opinions.
Middle class white man.
Mostly straight.
At least 40%.
Pete's pretty lonely, so we never know.
I am open to most things.
He's on Tinder. He's on Grindr. He's on Scissor.
Scissor? What is that thing?
That's the lesbian version of Grindr.
Of course it is.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I'm not on there.
The comedian Bethany Black recently tweeted that it's a shame that Scissor had to be called Scissor clearly because Flickr was already taken, which is a fucking great joke. But Scissor's pretty good anyway.
Scissor is pretty excellent. Anyway.
So last track, the eponymous flying Microtonal Banana.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Flying Microtonal Banana. Can you tell me what my favourite fact about this track is?
No.
It is the only song on the album that does not involve the Flying Microtonal Banana guitar.
Really?
Yep.
That's bullshit. Stu McKenzie, you bastard.
Yep. It's the only one. I don't know whether or not that means there's no microtones in it whatsoever.
Well, no, because they have all the other instruments are microtones.
I was going to say, so I didn't think so.
And it has excessive use of Zerner, which has no tuning.
So my favourite thing about this, so this is the Zerner in this track, because it's proper just like a real drone, like.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. That's a very good impression. I was just playing a Zerner just then.
Yeah.
That wasn't even an impression. I literally brought a Zerner with me because I really do my research.
Yeah.
I usually leave it at home, but I have done it. But I put this album on. I've put this album on in work quite a lot of times because it's really exciting for me to have an album that I can put on in work.
Yeah.
Hashtag cattle decapitation. So I love hashtagging in real life. I know it makes you sound like an arsehole.
It's the only place I actually hashtag.
Yeah. I do. I really enjoy doing it.
Makes me feel bad inside.
Yeah. No, I don't like myself for it, but I do enjoy the process. But I put this album on in work, and it was really fun watching my colleague Richard sitting next to. Because when there are some bits that penetrate slightly further. Like, so if you've got an album on in the car and it's quite quiet, and you can sometimes just hear the drums, you could definitely fucking hear the Zerner. So what I really liked about this was watching my colleague Richard try to take photos of a deaf old lady while literally all you can hear, you could see his face just getting more. She's probably sitting there going, "Oh, my hearing aid's going a bit dodgy here."
Yeah.
And like he's literally just going. It was really fun to watch that.
Yeah.
And I had the album on repeat.
Yeah,
so
I feel like the most egregious Zerner use is in the first track because it comes out of nowhere and you never see it coming, and then suddenly it's just like, whee! It's like full bagpipe blare.
Yeah. It is. I've got one of that. I do actually have one of those at home. One of the sort of the pipes that you use for a bagpipe, but it's not attached to a bag. So it's just like a practice bagpipe. But I can't play it because it's really difficult. It's like a sort of like a recorder that's got like stuff stuck in the tube. So that's that album. That's Flying Microtonal Banana by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard.
So
is there anything you I haven't touched on that you are surprised by?
No. I feel no because I feel
Good.
like
I've been comprehensive.
You clearly enjoyed this. I
did. I really enjoyed
the things
this.
you picked out are the things that I also enjoy. So I don't really have anything to.
This has got to be one of the most.
Did you like this thing that I thought was really interesting?
Yeah.
What I would say is because I remember giving this album to you and you being incredulous about the name of the band, incredulous about the name of the album, and then you were like, I felt like you were going into it going, this is going to be wank. So how have your perceptions changed of the album?
I think I was probably playing up a little bit.
Oh yeah,
how wanky I expected it to be.
Being a bit flippant.
But I definitely think my perception from watching, but this isn't from the album. This is from watching interviews with them, from watching clips of them in the studio.
Yeah.
My perception of them as a band has changed massively because rather than thinking they are hippie wankers who are trying to push boundaries, man, it feels like they're a group of people who are super into music and they're just nerds who are trying to see what they can do with sounds.
Yeah.
And that, for me, that immediately changes the way I listen to something. If I know what the motivation behind its creation is.
It's definitely not hard.
So that like I say, I was already vaguely familiar. I might have even already had this album on once or twice before, but again, I wouldn't have really been conscious of it. And I feel like I've got a lot out of paying attention to it, but I could equally just enjoy this album, having it on
as an album.
It's the first one I've had on in a while where I can have it on in the car.
Yeah,
my family are not cross with me.
That's gonna change.
That's it. Oh, thank you. I'm really glad. So
I mean,
well, I've enjoyed that while it lasted.
Yeah, well, this was your nice week. I told you, you get a nice one and a nasty one, and a nice one and a nasty one. That was a nice one. It's not hard to spot that they're big music nerds. You just have to watch one live performance and look at every T-shirt that every band member is wearing. Like, there'll be everything there from Metallica to Miles Davis. Like, they have bizarre, and there's a fantastic YouTube channel that I cannot remember the name of off the top of my head, but the show that's on it is called What's in My Bag. And it's just a massive vinyl record and DVD shop somewhere in America, and they get famous artists and bands to come and they go pick out a bunch of shit that you are interested in and then come talk about it on camera at the end.
Okay.
So King Gizzard have done one, and as you might expect, the range. So I'm pretty sure Stu didn't get any music. I'm pretty sure Stu just got books, and he was like, "This is real good. I'm going to read this. This should give me some ideas. Look how cool this thing is." And the rest of the band are like, "I got this weird jazz record. I found this obscure indie record. Here's some lo-fi pop." And you're like, yeah, of course, this is what you're listening to. This huge collection of stuff across the band that then condenses down and trickles down to be the raw essence of the King Giz sound, I guess.
Definitely. I think, so this is the most convergent we have been on an opinion, I think, since Neutral Milk Hotel. I think this is the first time. There's definitely been stuff where, like I said last time, that Yob was the best thing you had given me.
Yeah.
And I stand by that. It was still only third or fourth in terms of things I've enjoyed. This was I've written pleasant surprise, but I don't think that's entirely fair. If I was surprised by anything, it was how much I enjoyed it and how much I engaged with it and how much I got out of reading about it and playing around with it. I was reading about how the scale works, and it's a Dorian scale with a slightly flattened sixth. If that helps you at all.
It doesn't. See, this is like the converse of me talking to you about computer music.
So
you're talking to me about actual notation. I'm not going.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really understand a lot of that stuff, but I was playing Dorian scales and stuff. On my guitars, and obviously I didn't have a flattened.
I do feel like there's a lot of scales and a lot of things you can do notation wise and pitch wise with music that never gets it. People don't come out of the nice safe pond They stay in the nice.
Oh yeah.
You know.
I say
Equally
people. To be
divided,
fair, it definitely exists.
musically safe pop.
But with if
Oh,
we're
God,
talking
yeah.
within the mainstream stuff, then obviously no, it doesn't.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot more that
have you
can
heard
be done.
Ariana Grande's new song about microtones? To be fair, I don't dislike Ariana Grande. She comes across very well.
Actually,
so.
I think you'll find she's done an atonal piece.
So yeah, so that's my closing words.
Cool.
It's a really good album, lots of fun. We're going to play out now on John Cage's 433. We're not going to do that.
That was clever though. I like that. That was a good joke.
The thing is, I think people have genuinely been sued for using that.
That'll suit.
Have you ever seen a video of an orchestra playing it?
Yeah,
Fuck me, it's awkward. It's bizarre. It's beautiful though. It's such a good idea. It's so funny. There's a one, I don't know if this is true. But I think there's a piece that he wrote that in such a slow tempo that like every 2 or 3 weeks a monk has to go and change a brick on a piano so that it plays a different note.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah. I actually learned about there's one that's been going for it would go for hundreds of years, or it is going, and it will last for hundreds of years. Currently, there's one.
Yeah.
It's the slowest piece of me. I learned.
That must be the same one.
It may be. I don't know.
One. Jingle. So do you want to know what you're listening to this time?
Oh really? Yeah, go on, tell me.
So I've got because my list is getting really it's really long now.
Yeah, mine is obscene,
and I'm really struggling. So that's how you ended up with the Stranglers last time, was just because I just went through and just I've got some I'm more excited to give you, some I'm less excited, and some that it's really difficult to keep the list in any sort of order. There's no order.
Yeah.
Because there's not a single album on this list. I'm not really fucking excited.
I sort of have a vague list and in my head, and I always remember something that's not on the list, and I tend to give you stuff on the spur of the moment on how I'm feeling like a week prior.
Yeah.
So I'll think of it, I'll be like, next time I see Joe, that's what he's getting.
Yeah, see that's the thing.
My
list is very set, but it's all stuff that there's literally I would love to, if we lived next door to each other, we could be doing this once a week because I'd love to hear what you'd do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd love to know what you thought about all of these albums. Anyway, the album I'm going to give you this week or this month or whatever is called The Fire Is on the Bird by Jackson Jackson. So you'll be vaguely familiar with some of the output of Jackson Jackson because it's Harry James Angus from the Cat Empire.
Oh, okay.
It's the one. It's the less melodic. It's the more rappy, scatty guy from the Cat Empire. I fucking love this guy's output. He's one of those. He's kind of a bit of a renaissance man. When it comes to music, he creates a lot and it covers a lot of genres. The Cat Empire is a totally separate thing from Jackson Jackson, which is separate again from his solo stuff. I don't know what you'll think of this album. It's a bit more. I'm going to sort of say it's hip hop because there's a lot of hip hoppy kind of stuff going on in there. It's not really that though. If you can't find it. Again, because I'm starting to feel there's a theme going on with stuff. I'm going to give you a struggle. You're
recommending me obscure hipster twat shit. Yep.
Yeah. This is probably so obscure that most hipsters wouldn't have even fucking heard it. I'm trying to think when I first heard this. I think they did there was a great. I can't think. I think it was a benefit album or a benefit record that they put out as part of a compilation. And there was a song on that called Dave, which was Dave by Jackson Jackson, and it was just this fucking wonderful, just made me want to walk like a dinosaur and have a lovely old time. And that's a really weird thing to say when, in my head, I know exactly what I mean, but that probably doesn't make any sense to anybody else. I'm just in that sort of mood. So yeah. But this is a really weird album. I think you're going to really like it.
Good.
I really hope you're going to like it.
I'm sure I'll enjoy it.
And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a bit of it.
Okay.
Can't remember what the name of the song is, so Editor Joe's going to mention that before I start playing it.
Oh, what a good guy.
Yeah, I know. He's a great guy, and he does a lot of work for this show. And I don't think he gets credited enough. It's because I haven't put him in the credits as specifically as editor. He's a good bloke.
He works hard.
He works really hard.
Works really hard.
He's tired. He's really tired. So I'm going to play a bit of that now, and I really hope you're going to enjoy this album, mate. Oh, cheers, Joe. The song you're looking for is The International Society of Bad Dancers by Jackson Jackson.
I'm just another bad dancer who won't take no for an answer. You'll see us on every dance floor. I'm fit and sweat slick like a cancer. We don't know how to grind our hits. We don't know how to pound with our hips. We don't know how to bump and dip, but when the beat hits, well, we don't give a shit.
Thanks very much for listening, everyone. Speak to you next time. Bye.
It's Funny podcast was presented and devised by Peter McHugh and Joe McLachlan. Music was by The X Towels.